AI is changing design. So we challenged our designers to see who could use it the best. Welcome to the AI Hackathon. Hi, my name is Blake Johnson. I'm the design director and partner here at Hatch Duo. Throughout the history of the design industry, we've seen several different shifts in the workflow created by technology. Things like computer-aided design, 3D printing, all of these things have had major impacts on how design is done. And the shift that we're seeing right now is generative AI and how that impacts design, even as far as the role of the designer and what they do in that process is shifting. For designers, AI is becoming a critical skill set to master. You really have to be comfortable with it and integrate it into your workflow in intelligent ways. If you've seen any of our past videos and content, you know that here at Hatch Duo, we embrace technology, and AI is no exception. As designers at Hatch Duo, we are trying to actually create the new workflow for design with AI. All of our designers here approach it a little bit differently and integrate AI in different ways. Some focus on speed to concepts, some focus on quantity so that they have a lot of options to pick and choose from. Others focus on how it can emphasize or amplify their creativity or even just the front-end research and understanding problems. That's why we decided to put it to the test and let each individual workflow kind of be compared to each other. We launched the first AI Hackathon here at Hatch Duo, a challenge to see who can harness AI in the most effective and imaginative way. Same tools, same design prompts, everyone was tackling the exact same design problem, but we let everyone approach it in their own way, integrating AI however they saw fit. And the results that we saw at the end of this competition couldn't be more different. Each person really leveraged it in different parts of the process in different ways. Super interesting. Right, so what are the rules of the game? Over 4 weeks, each of our designers will take on a solo design sprint to come up with a new product concept based on a randomly selected product or category. The twist in this competition, though, is that it's not about the end results. We are not judging based on quality of the design, quality of the end visuals. What we really want to see is how our team most creatively and effectively integrates AI into their workflow. You know, it might be refining storytelling, generating visuals, ideation, CNF concepts, and also, very importantly, when to not use AI and when to revert back to traditional design workflows. So the key to success in this competition is the most effective application of AI, when to withhold AI and rely on traditional design skills. Those are the primary metrics for success here. Each designer is free to use whatever tools they like, traditional 3D modeling, rendering, but also all of the AI tools available, Midjourney, ChatGPT, VizCom, and a plethora of others, right? So they can use any combination going back and forth at any time. There's no definitive use AI here, use traditional here. That's up to the designer. And in the end, they will all give a final presentation of their design outcome, how they got to that outcome. They will also have to submit a journal, basically a documentation of that whole process. Our designers that will be competing in this design challenge are Hank, Nicole, Wiri, and Katie. Now let's see our topic. Okay, so we're kicking off the first ever Hatch Duo AI Hackathon. I couldn't resist the pun. Sorry. All right, so I have our topics all written down on notes. Are you ready? This is what I'm going to pull them out of. Check this out.
Oh, very shiny. Oh, I can see your whole office.
Yes. Yes, this is a giant golden egg. I had to borrow it from my daughter. It's one of her toys. But it's perfect. It's so perfect. I had to use it. All right, so I have everything in here. All of the options that were posted. So we're going to crack the egg. I'm not going to look. Everybody ready? I'm having so much fun with the giant golden egg. Here, I got one. Wheelchair. That was like one of my last guys I just threw in. All right, that's the prompts. What do you think?
Can we read it? I like wheelchair. I don't.
All right. I think there's a lot of different directions you could take it. Has some interesting possibilities. A lot of good like interaction touch points too, right? Okay, so we're kicking off. We're gonna do a wheelchair. I'll post it, and you can get started anytime. All right, off to the races. Have fun.
Okay.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. So wheelchairs as the design topic is going to be very interesting and a lot of fun, actually. This is an exciting topic. The reason is that it can go many different directions. The design team can choose to keep it very simple with no bells and whistles and just go for kind of a lifestyle or stylistic design. They can add electronics and make it a powered wheelchair. They could even go into more of a transportation space and get, very sleek and streamlined. There's a lot you can do with a wheelchair. And for this specific competition, since we're not judging the end result as much, it really doesn't matter which way they decide to go. Even if somebody, two people choose two very different directions, it doesn't necessarily make any difference on how they will do in this competition because we're mostly focused on the workflow and how AI is used intelligently and efficiently to improve the quality or speed up the process. So this is going to be very fun and very interesting. At the time of this video, we're about halfway through the timeline for this hackathon. So the team at this point has hopefully established a concept. They know which direction they're going, and they're just sprinting to the finish line to get this thing done at a high quality, very considered details and design and features. So let's see how the team is coming along.
Hello, my name is Hank. I am an industrial designer with Hatch Duo. I work on most of the industrial design projects and some special projects on the side as well, including graphics and interaction design. And I'm participating in this hackathon, and our topic is wheelchair. So actually, wheelchair topic was that I was a bit surprised, but I also like certain concepts or subjects that are considered a bit like quote unquote boring. So it was a very exciting prompt that I went into. And my process, I started with looking at a bunch of different types of wheelchairs because I'm not a wheelchair user myself. So I wanted to first understand the product. So I kind of looked at different types of it, the ones that are powered versus manual, or there's certain ones that can be stood up in the chair. So then I move on to inspiration. I looked up images of some automotive design and also some wheelchair designs, planning to feed into AI later for image generation and style influences. The next step is to define the overall thematic topic I want to focus on, kind of the overall concept of my wheelchair. And I wanted to do something that's more wild and somewhat fictional in a way, where I wanted to imagine a future in both a somewhat optimistic and pessimistic way, where in the future the elderly or the disabled may not have enough social support and they're expected to be more independent on their own. And I wanted to see almost like a thought experiment of how wheelchairs will evolve in form and function to adapt to that future. So on this page, you can see that there are an expansive of concepts and different form directions. I think AI is very good at ideating and really expanding, opening up the box for different kinds of forms, different ideas, different concepts. And then once I have all these concepts, I select a few that I like, that I think make sense, because AI sometimes doesn't understand context or doesn't understand what the designer really wants. So I kind of curate it down into a few things. And then I use image editing tools. So this one is a fun example because I wanted a screen on the front of the wheelchair, and the AI just really struggled to generate a screen on kind of towards the front of the chair, and it kept putting it on the headrest. So what I did was basically using some simple color blocking to direct where the actual feature should go accurately, and then using ChatGPT to then converge on an idea that is more specific. So detailed feature placements and really take control of the concept instead of going wild. And then I arrived on some of these images to the right here, thinking about incorporating other accessories and features onto the wheelchair, such as a little drone that guides the wheelchair, that looks ahead, that looks out for you, that can do simple chores for you, like picking up small items for you from the store where maybe they're not as maneuverable as bigger stores. So this is my progress so far.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm currently an industrial designer at Hatch Duo. And yeah, when this wheelchair prompt came up, we had just finished like a really grueling medical project. So I was not excited, not for the reasons that you think they are, just I wasn't excited to do this all over again. But I will go into my process and we'll see how I've found like some really interesting aspects that I'm like really digging into right now. So yeah, while I'm working at Hatch Duo, I've been taking the Caltrain up and down, and I noticed specifically at Belmont and the San Francisco station, like surprisingly, they use manual wheelchair lifts to like bring people up and down the stairs. And like people, as you can see here with the train operator, he literally has to hand crank people. So it takes time. And there's also a lot of planning. Like you have to alert the train conductor to tell them that like someone's arriving with a wheelchair and they have to wheel this out and then like crank people up. So I just felt that if I were a wheelchair user, I'd feel really bad about inconveniencing people. And like I'd really appreciate it if there was a way to like just easily go up and down stairs with my wheelchair. So through this, I got really into looking at transformable wheels. I just thought it would be like a really cool like novel idea and like pretty delightful too to have like a wheel that would like sort of change shape and adapt to whatever terrain that it has to deal with. And then I even 3D printed a version. So I just took a iris box off of Thingiverse and I just like cut some pieces off and then tried like testing out to see if this could actually be feasible, because as you can see right now there's not really any transformable wheels. I wanted to figure out why, and basically what I found is that going downstairs is really difficult. It kind of just slides off the stairs, though while it goes upstairs it's really easy. Also there's a lot of moving joints, so I was sure that something would break. So I started researching actual wheels that like go up and down stairs. And this is a current wheelchair that's in production. Right now, as you can see, she's going up the stairs, but she's going backwards because of the weight distribution. And I believe that like kind of loses some agency to this because you have to like back into the stairs. So yeah, I wanted to like change it up and make sure that the wheels, like you can face forward as you go upstairs. And yeah, and I also took inspiration from these excavator chain belt wheels. And yeah, and then from there, I just like started sketching out and blocking out like what I wanted and like combining pieces. So I wanted to make sure that this was an inviting piece and that people would want to sit in it and would feel like a piece of furniture and wouldn't be like obtrusive. And then that's the first week. And then for the second week, I started doing more sketches and just blocking out shapes. As you can see here, I started putting in a parting line at the front because I found that if this whole entire piece were to go up the stairs, once it got to the top of the stairs, it would be very unbalanced. So I wanted to make sure that the front could like latch onto the top of the stairs and bring the rest of the wheelchair up. Yeah, and I started playing with that idea. This one where it attaches to the front of the wheel so that the whole ride will be more smooth. And yeah, just different variations. And from there, I put it into Midjourney, and I just wanted to see like what kind of forms that they like came out with. I find that Midjourney has really good like material qualities to them, so I just wanted to figure out like what kind of materials I wanted to play with and what kind of like if I want to do any lighting or like parting lines and stuff like that. From there, I moved into VisCom. So for VisCom, you can do a lot more like control over the colors and what materials you want to use. So as you can see here, these are a lot closer to my sketches, and I do like these directions a lot more. Yeah, and then from there, I plugged it into ChatGPT. These are a little bit more varied. It looks more 3D rendered. Yeah, and the final, I think I will like work more with this, but I do like the quality of the VisCom renderings more, so I think I will be switching in between these two quite a bit. And then I'm planning on doing more details, working on the armrest specifically because I want to make sure the controls will like work out well, especially since this is like a remote, not a manual wheelchair, it's an electric wheelchair. And yeah, for that.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Wiri. I'm also industrial designer at HDO. Here's my progress for wheelchair design. First, I listed out what kind of mood vibe that for my wheelchair designs. I was focusing on more like a stylish, more like a emotionally resonant design, more like a welcoming, inviting feeling, and more like a sophisticated. Then I wanted it to look more like a minimal, but still warm and also futuristic. So I wanted to add more like a robotic feature in it. And actually, I started gathering inspiration using Mood AI and Midjourney. For Mood AI, I got the inspiration from like existing products more than from Midjourney, more like a design inspiration. So in Midjourney, I could prompt like what mood I'm aiming for. So here you can see something like more futuristic or modern and sophisticated. I also tried more like artistic furniture way, then into the more like a lifestyle design. But here actually I didn't wanna go too aspirational or unrealistic, so I'm more focusing on features that like feeling innovative but still like practical. So to begin, I listed out key design features that I wanted to include in my wheelchair design and collected reference images to support that vision. Okay, so yeah, now I have clear direction for the design, that the specific details and function and I'm planning to include. So I started like heading to move forward. That's it. I thought it could be cool. Actually, wheelchairs are really complex. Yeah. Anyway, I started caddy and I actually had to figure out the proportion really well. It's really hard. Yeah. And we have to consider the ergonomics a lot and the user experience a lot. I actually really enjoyed that part. So yeah, I like just challenging myself for ergonomics. So when I saw wheelchair was our topic, I was actually happy.
My name is Katie Tabrilovich. I'm an industrial designer at Hatch Duo, and I'm going to talk you through my process of using AI to design a wheelchair. I thought this was a really interesting prompt because wheelchairs are really difficult, complicated products. They also serve such a wide base of people, and there's lots of different types of them. So I was really interested to just dive into research and learn more. I didn't have any initial ideas at the offset about which direction I wanted to take it. I was actually really curious about how I could use ChatGPT to, sort of talk through like what are the existing and historic challenges for wheelchairs as a product and the people who use them. So that was my plan. So like I said, I started with GPT and in this file just sort of began to pick out some of the interesting tidbits of conversation and like visualize them here in a little bit more of a concise way. One of the prompts that I started with GPT was just give me all of the high level information about wheelchairs, like what's the history of them, who's using wheelchairs, how's that changed, like just to get an overall idea of like what is the history of this product and like how is it moving forward. And I wanted to use some of that to like inform my own ideas about what I wanted to design for. Lots of other questions, and that generated obviously a ton of different things. I picked out this section because it was something of interest and helped guide my ultimate direction. It talked about customizability versus cost and how personalization can often be at odds with cost for users, as well as maintenance. And that factors into cost as well. I thought that was sort of interesting, so I decided to chase those a little bit with GPT and continue the conversation. I thought that would be a really interesting direction to go and could actually sort of serve each other in the sense that if something was modular, it would need to potentially be easier to disassemble or to fix. So then I chatted a little bit back and forth about this direction in general and the considerations as well as different components of a wheelchair. If that was something I needed to understand better. So GPT broke a lot of that down for me. The main thing that I took out of this, since I'm in the beginning stages, is this idea of like, okay, let's break down the parts of a wheelchair, and asked for just a basic diagram of the parts of a wheelchair because I was sort of curious what it would come up with, and I could compare that against like other maybe Googleable research, which I don't have pasted here, but it did a pretty good job. It gets the initial idea across, but a lot of things are sort of mislabeled or like missing callouts. So that was interesting. Before jumping into this like rabbit hole of customization, I wanted to sort of backtrack a little bit and get a better idea of what for wheelchairs now, especially within the realm of customization and modularity. So I chatted with GPT a little bit back and forth about that as well and got some brand and product recommendations to look into to kick off the research phase. I found a few different brands. These three in particular were really interesting and hit the mark in terms of the issues I wanted to address. This one is highly customizable. They boast like 100,000 different configurations. They have an entire PDF that actually breaks down like every component. So that was really useful for me. In general, I also decided at the outset that I wanted to focus on manual wheelchairs, so non-electronic. The user generally pushes them with their arms. These are pretty basic. There's several things that just are very vital for this type of design and is one of the reasons why a lot of these look very similar, because they have to be super lightweight. They have to be this sort of skeleton structure to achieve that. This one I thought was very interesting as well in terms of form, and they had some good animation references for assembling components as well. And then this one honestly was the most interesting to me in terms of both aesthetics and customizability, rather, in terms of like color. And then they have a bunch of different designs. This was one of the honestly just most futuristic and cleaner wheelchair designs for a manual wheelchair that I've seen. So I thought this was a really excellent reference. In terms of finishing out this like existing product comparison, I had GPT help generate a few different charts and talk about like frame material and customizability and looking at weight as well as maintenance as well, and then generated a chart that I might use to begin to translate this information. So this is something that's a little more visually digestible. So it's actually ranking all of these in terms of customizability, modularity, and then maintenance, and then just some key observations on some of this outside product comparison. Before moving into aesthetics, I also wanted to try out some user interview simulations with GPT. Since this was a quicker project, we won't be able to talk to anyone in person or even just a real person, period. So I chatted back and forth about the things I was curious about and helped generate like a base user interview documentation and questions to go through with everyone. I thought this was pretty good. In like a typical, more drawn out project, I would probably go back and forth in this process several times, but I thought this was pretty good to start out, and I had it generate like a list of different personas that I could sort of choose from that I was really interested in chatting with or solving for their issues specifically. Actually, one of my learnings through this simulated user interview process was actually because I was having this user interview simulated within the same chat as all of my background research and discussion on the project itself. I found that some of the user responses felt too on the nose or a little bit led, even though I said I wanted this to be like a normal, just like unbiased user interview about wheelchair users. So I think in the future, if I was going to do a deeper dive on this, I would test out maybe a separate GPT chat, just a new window to simulate this interview so that it stays really clean and a little bit separate and doesn't feel as leading in its responses. I am currently in the stage of gathering aesthetic inspiration for just my own inspiration in manual mode, as well as plug into Midjourney to start generating some aesthetics. I used GPT. I asked it things like, where should I go to look at product inspiration, keywords to use, in addition to like what other products should I be leaning into for references, both for overall product and details. That in particular was really useful to me. That's something that we do a lot in projects, and for me at least, usually I think through those things manually, so it was a lot quicker to just chat back and forth. So I'm going to continue in this phase just a little bit more to get some more breadth, and then I'll be diving into starting to generate some visuals and then my own sketching.
So that's it for part one. The team has shown a lot of interesting strategy and creativity. Just like we hoped, everyone kind of took a slightly different path with wheelchairs and how they approach it, which makes it very interesting to see. As for the use of AI, everyone is also taking slightly different approaches with that. Some focusing more on front-end research with GPT, some really leaning into visual exploration with tools like Midjourney and Viscom, Everyone's really tackling this thing from different approaches, which makes it super fun and interesting to watch. The team has about a week and a half left to finish their projects, at which time they will be presenting their final presentations, showing their final design, as well as walking us through their whole workflow and how they integrated AI at different points, where they chose to not use AI and lean more into their traditional design skills. So we'll really start to understand the full picture of the workflow and how that led to the final result. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. I'll be notified when part 2 comes out. And then you can see how the team finished their designs with AI, how those final results came out. Anyway, my name is Blake. I'll see you for part 2 of the hackathon with Hatch Duo. Let's hatch awesome.